the topic for today is going to be why do we think it's important to invest? And maybe also, like, specifically why it's important to invest while you are also young and not like something you maybe should postpone for a very long period of time.
Perfect. I couldn't have said it better myself. So, Marcus, maybe if you want to start, if you could talk to your 15-year-old self, what would be the reason you give?
Honest and boring answer would be obviously like, remember the cumulative effect that the money you're going to put in now, say that you put in 20 euros now, it's not going to be 20 euros in 50 years. Like, okay, when you were 15, 20 euros was actually a fair bit of cash. Like, I mean, now it's not so much. But maybe you could even put away like 5 euros or something. You didn't buy like some snack or a coffee or something, and you could put away this money and you would invest it in a safe form of investment, like index funds or something like that, that basically keeps on growing almost forever.
Whoa, wait, hold a minute here.
Okay.
So what's an index fund? Maybe if we start there by explaining a bit more about that.
Hi everybody, Lucas here to explain the concept of index funds simply for you. But first, why am I showing you a picture of a catering dinner? Well, let me ask you this. Have you ever been to a restaurant? Just get there, get the menu, you wonder, what am I gonna order? Kind of afraid to try something new, because you're afraid that once you get it, you don't like it, and now you're stuck with it. Well, this is a little bit like buying a stock. You get one stock, it might do really well, it might do really bad, but you get the one stock. Well, of course you could buy several stocks, but that quickly becomes very expensive. Well, an index fund is more like eating at a nice catering restaurant. Instead of ordering just one meal and being stuck with it, you get to taste the entire menu. Sure, there might be some things that you don't like, but the overall experience tends to be positive. Similarly, an index fund is a portfolio of stocks or bonds designed to mimic the composition and performance of a financial market index. Wow, that was quite a mouthful. So what this effectively means is that you get to sample the entire market. Usually, in reality, this means that you get to sample, for example, the 500 biggest companies in America, or maybe the 30 biggest companies in Finland. But because of this, because you get to sample the entire market, or you get to taste the entire menu, the risks of an index fund are much better diversified. And if you know anything about investment, you know that diversification is key. So my girlfriend told me that this was a bad metaphor, because catering does not usually serve that good food. And this might be true, but this is my explanation video, and I like this metaphor, so I'm keeping it. Anyway, there's another great reason to invest in an index fund instead of buying individual stocks, and this is because index funds are passively managed, and this subsequently means that you usually pay a very low annual fee compared to traditional mutual funds, for example, which are actively managed. More about mutual funds probably in another video. But for now, just know that an index fund is cheaper and it tries to mimic the overall marketplace, counting on the fact that the market over time tends to go up. While, on the other hand, mutual funds are actively managed, trying to pick stocks that can beat the pace of the market. But while doing so, they charge quite a high fee. And this fee is a percentage fee, meaning that it directly eats into your profit. So if your overall profit is 10% and the fee is say 2%, you only end up with a profit of 8%. And this really starts to add up over time, especially since these investments are what you would call a buy and hold, meaning that you will probably keep them for quite a long time. The longer the better usually. This results in the fact that small differences like these, even if you might think it's just a 1% difference, it really adds up over time. This we will talk more about when we discuss the power of compound interest in the next video. So now you have the basics of an index fund, and even the granddaddy of investing, the legendary Warren Buffett, has recommended index funds as a haven for saving. And this is because of all these reasons. It's easy to manage, it's well diversified, and it has low fees. So, hopefully this made this concept easy for you to understand. Thank you so much for watching this. Let's keep on investing.
The idea is basically that, of course, usually when you put money into a bank, 50 euros is going to be 50 euros. It's going to stay the same. Like the
It's not going to change. Like the interest on bank account is basically
non-existent.
Yeah, especially in our lifetime. I remember that my parents said that, like, I don't know exactly when, but when they bought their house, for instance, like the interest rates in banks were 15%, which of course for us sounds incredibly crazy, but those were different times. But it's not really relevant anymore, I'd say, because actually today what is it called again? Like the Americans slashed the interest rates twice. So first they lowered it to like 1.15 and then they lowered it to basically 0. So there are no interest rates. We're back there again where there are basically no interest rates. So keeping your money in the bank is probably not the best idea, so to speak. And that's where investments come in, that they are an amazing alternative to just keeping your money on a pile in a brick and mortar bank.
Exactly, yeah. So because what I feel like a lot of people miss, and what I miss to some extent, is the exponential nature of investing. And what I mean by that is that, say that you have 50 euros and the average return of the stock market over a long period of time has been about 7.8%. So of course 7% or 8% of 50 is only 4 euros. So you might say that that's not much, but that also means that the next year, theoretically at least, if it keeps on the average, you're gonna have 54, and then it's gonna be 7 or 8% of 54. So it's gonna increase with a little bit more for each year. In the beginning, like as I said, you don't really see it, but then when you start nearing like past the 10-year mark, 20-year mark, 30-year mark, it starts going like it's crazy how quickly the money doubles.
It's basically very easy today. Like it used to be really hard. You had to go to your bank. You actually had to have like physical shares, papers that said you owe this and this. Like that's why they're called shares, is because they used to be papers that literally, if you track them all, it led to like the full amount of shares a company had. This is obviously not the case anymore. Like these days, instead, you can buy everything online. You can set up good accounts through at least decent banks, that you can track your investment and grow your position like gradually if you want to. So I think that there's basically no reason for people these days not to at least have some sort of investment. Your position doesn't have to be really big. You don't have to have a lot of money invested. But if you don't invest anything in, say, like mutual funds or investment deemed safe, so to say, you're just losing out on money. Like that's the problem, because the banks are not paying you to have your money on a pile in their bank. So if you want to like take charge and actually at least get some money, like getting your money to work for you, which is a common saying, then you should do something about your situation probably, and at the very least, invest in some kind of safe funds, whatever is comfortable for you. That might be 5%, 10% of your monthly income. It might be a certain amount every year, whatever is comfortable. But you can do this gradually, and you're going to thank yourself in the future, unless everything crashes, and...
First, I just want to jump in real quickly and say mutual funds, personally, I just want to be clear that I don't recommend them because of the fees that we talked about earlier.
I don't have them either.
Yeah, but again, I totally agree that you will be missing out if you don't do something. And then what you said about that inflation, it does exist, and it does matter. Just if you, what is it? It's like 2.7%, 2%.
Yeah, it varies, but it's around. They usually try to keep it at the 2% level, which at this point, I'm getting below 2% interest rate on my savings account, which basically means that every year I'm pretty much losing money. Although I'm gaining money on my account, I am losing buying power every year.
Yeah, and that's something that's important to keep in mind, like that losing buying power, because you might say to yourself that okay, I have it saved and I can use it a rainy day, but it might be that when the rainy day comes, you don't have as much as you thought you did.
Yeah, and even if you have a lot of money, it doesn't matter if your buying power is still low. You can have millions, but if the inflation has made it so that everything costs millions, you're as poor as when you started. There's no
Yeah,
difference.
exactly. And of course, that's an extreme situation, which is probably not going to happen, but it's still a real thing. And that was one of the first things for me that I started realizing that when you always talk about cash is king, investors usually say that cash is trash. What you want is cash flow.
And also probably the famous saying you have heard that you want your money to work for you. Cash is not working for you. That's just like a dragon. You're just sitting on a pile of gold.
Yeah.
But the gold isn't doing anything. It's just pretty.
But again, like I do believe that you should absolutely save some like this that you haven't heard about, but usually people talk about an emergency fund with which they say is like 6 months to 1.5 a year of all of your expenses,
Yeah.
which are just
Costs, yeah.
yeah. So say that for me, my expenses are quite low because I'm a student, so I can probably do with like let's say 5,000 half a year. I'm not entirely sure now, but so that would basically be my emergency fund. So then if something happens, if I would lose my job in the future, I would have that amount to fall back on, so I know okay, then I have this much time to find a solution. So that's a great way to start. That could be your first step into investing, that if you're currently living paycheck to paycheck, to at least get that in order. Of course, we're a bit spoiled here in the Nordic countries because we do have social security, so we have
and health insurance, which is like, because that's why it's more actually of an American thing, is that if you have to pay for like medical expenses and stuff like that,
yeah
we're insured here in like the Nordics.
yeah
So usually it's not really that big of a deal, but I still recommend you carry an emergency fund for at least 3 months. Like
yeah
at
because
least 3
still
months.
other things can come up, and like if nothing else, like a great deal can come up, and you might want to use cash right now. So even though our situation isn't quite the same, like as you said, I think 3 months as well is a very good thing to have. But after
Yeah.
that, for me, I would tell myself that just talk about the concepts of like money working for you, or building a money machine, as I've heard some people say. That's something that you can actually do, because for the longest time I thought the only real way to do that was by real estate, like actual real estate for like hundreds of thousands of euros. So I felt uh, I felt a bit defeated because I knew it was something I really wanted to do, but it was basically impossible before I had a job and before I had worked for a long time to like how, because I didn't really know what kind of investments you could make
Yeah.
apart from okay buying a stock, but I had read enough so that I knew that that was a big risk.
Yeah.
So I started even thinking that it would be so great if you could like buy parts of real estate and get part of the rent, like if you could just go together with 10 of your friends. At least in the States there's already this possibility that you basically similar that you could buy a part of a company and it pays you part of the profit. You can do this real estate. That's and it has a name. It's like REC maybe. I don't remember that right now. But so it already exists. That was basically my whole point with this. That you can put down just a lot smaller amount and you can still reap some of the benefits. And I think this is the great thing with index funds, because this is exactly what it allows you to do. That it allows you to put down, like for me, investing in by using Nordnet, the smallest pledge you can make to index or any funds is 15 euros. So that's like even a 15-year-old who's just worked his first summer job or her first summer job have a lot of 15 euros.
Especially since you usually don't have like a lot of costs at 15.
Yes.
And yeah, I should probably say I checked like if you can own funds, if you can own all this kind of stuff. And yeah, you can, but you have to work through a guardian.
Okay, yeah. So you can, but
Like yeah, if you get like your relative to do this for you, it's okay.
Yeah,
But the problem is you can't do it yourself.
but that makes sense. Like I think that's a good idea because it wouldn't be responsible otherwise. But I think this is something that you could very easily present to your parents.
Yeah. I mean, people have different opinions about that. Like, if it's a good idea to start investing early. I know that at least in America, it's like very supported that children should invest. Like, they are encouraged. I don't know so much. I think we have a different outlook on investments here in the Nordics, where it's for some people it's seen as kind of like dirty, I guess. Almost. I get this like I have like this feeling at least that some people don't really want to talk too much about it.
Yeah.
It's frowned upon, you know.
Hey, could we talk a bit about more about that? What you just said, that just investing and
Yeah,
maybe money in general is considered a bit dirty or like somehow bad. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I think it varies on where you live, so to speak. Like, I mean, in America, I at least get the feeling that it's kind of holy, you know, and money. Everyone can sort of talk about money, and everybody is interested in to a certain aspect, at least from what you heard from. But like here in the Nordics, it's like very dependent on who you're talking to, and I think that our generation is generally more interested in these sort of things, because when you talk to older people in general, they might not even be that interested in this sort of thing, and they see money as kind of dirty, or like investments is something you should be incredibly careful about. I think it's because of the big crashes and stuff. Like they know like of when people lost all their money, like that they had invested in like stock market.
Yeah, but I also think it might have to do a bit with the culture, that you have to be more humble, and it might be too closely related to bragging if you talk about what you own and what you don't own, and just this idea that people assign a lot of value to if you have money or not. I started looking at money in this way, that if you have money, it's probably because you've done someone a favor, because that's why we have money from the beginning. It's to track favors, because a long time ago, if we wanted to trade one thing for another, we had to track the literal thing for the other. But this way, I can go to work and I can do a favor for my boss, and he can deem how much my favor is worth, and then I can ask someone else who I don't know for a similar favor of a similar value, and it just works a lot smoother. And I talked about this more in detail with one of my friends, and like in small communities, like in villages where we both grew up, is the concept of talco work familiar to you?
Yeah, sure,
Yeah,
of course.
exactly.
I think the whole of like Ostrobotnia is
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's quite an interesting phenomenon, I think, because it's more of a like people keep track like how much you've worked, and I think it's sort of an assurance in the same way that money can be an assurance, because if something happens to you, you know you have a lot of friends who you've been there for when they needed you, and they will be there when you need them. So it's this very organic and I think evolutionary way to cooperate.
Mm.
And problem is, of course, since we live in such big societies these days, so you can't keep track of everyone anymore, and that's basically, as I see it, what money allows you to do. That it's like
Well, it allows for like bigger organizations and like bigger developments. I think. Like I think it has contributed greatly to what we have today, and like people can argue if it's good or bad with like massive companies and stuff like this. But I mean, I think they have added value in at least their own right, and a lot of them have made the world a better place in the end. I mean, like people also place their trust in these companies that they can achieve something,
yeah,
hopefully good things, you know.
yeah.
Like something that would benefit society, and I think that's also where like money comes in, because it's like you said, like it's good like if you can keep track and people are like familiar with each other and they can count on each other, but how will you deal with people from other countries which you have
Exactly.
never interacted with if you have no like common system to keep track of these favors, how you should interact? So there's need to be something, you know. And
Yeah, exactly. So what this allows us to do is take this old village system, that I've done a favor for you, so now you do a favor for me, and you can just translate it across borders basically, because I've done a favor for someone in my own country, and I can give you this token of favor, and you can use the same token of favor for someone else in your own country to do a favor for you. That's a
It
little
goes
bit,
around.
it's a bit, that's how I think I'm gonna explain money to my own children when I grow up, because I think it's just a more healthy way, because if you use money for almost everything in your life, and you assign money as somehow the root of all evil, or like you assign it with greed and all these negative values, I just don't think it's a good outlook to have on a society. For me, it's way too cynical. Of course, there's bad aspects in everything, as you said, with companies, but it's not even realistic. Like being overly cynical and being overly naive, to me, is just as bad. The only
definitely.
thing is that the naive person is a lot happier. So to me, being overly cynical, to me, is like even worse. But okay, I'm getting off topic again.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit off topic, but I don't know. I think like in general, money definitely has a value in its own right, and that there is nothing wrong in trying to be like successful and build your own future, especially since like we are very dependent on these things these days because everything is pretty expensive, and I don't see a world where everything is suddenly going to change and everything becomes free or something like this.
Yeah.
So and also one more thing is that you probably should look out for yourself at least a little bit, and have some sort of money. How should you track it so that you can know that you have a little bit in the future also, at least, or maybe even more if possible.
Yeah, and again, it allows you to it allows you to help your friends as well. If
Yeah, your friends, your community, everyone. Like money can be a very force of good also.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you can donate and stuff like this. So definitely, I totally agree.
But yeah, so this is maybe some of the thoughts we have about investing. Just
Yeah, maybe also why you should invest, and maybe that you shouldn't be like predisposed to like saying that no, investments are bad and money is bad and we shouldn't do this and stuff like that. That money is like, it's good to invest so that you can contribute with money maybe that you wouldn't use for something else or just on yourself, like buy a new watch or something. Instead, you can put it towards a goal that might be a little bit bigger even than yourself.
Exactly. And I just one more thing for me is just security. Like as we talked about already, that I would really love to come to the point that I know that I have so much invested that all my base needs are just covered for. And it kind of sounds a bit crazy, but when you actually sit down and with a calculator and do the math, you realize quite soon that it's not impossible. It really isn't, and it would just give, for me, it would just give such much more peace of mind. And I think this was one of the concepts when I read Brian Tracy's book for the first time. Just this coming to a point during your working life where you know you can retire if you want to or need to.
Yeah.
And how much that actually improves your work, like your productivity, because you're not doing it from a place of desperation. You know you're there because you want to. Similar to how university students and upper secondary students tend to be a lot more motivated because they know they don't have to be there. They're there because they chose to be there.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
So that ever since I read that, that has just been like that has basically been my biggest financial or career goal for me to come to a place where I'm like independent and go to work.
Yeah, financial freedom, that's like what most people want to strive for in some regard. And also I just want to add one more thing, is that if you don't like investing and if you don't think this is funny to any extent, then maybe we could present at some point some alternate investing strategies for people that want to invest but they really don't care about investing.
At the moment I have it automated completely already, so we can definitely go into more detail about that in a future episode. But I think for now this is a pretty good package here for the first video to talk, where we talked a bit about why you should invest and why you shouldn't wait to start.
Yeah, and the general value of investing.
Do you have anything more you would like to say?
No, I don't think I have any like final thoughts other than I hope we expand some of these ideas in the future so that maybe things become a little bit more clear. But
Yeah.
In general, I think we touched upon some good points here, and you should never be. It's never too late to invest, and you should never be afraid to invest small amounts. And investing can be for everyone. It's not like just for select few people that are like savants or something at investing. Everyone can invest.
Yeah.
Just don't overextend.
Absolutely. Okay, well, thank you so much. If you've listened to this point, somehow I doubt it since this is the very first episode. But